I've had the chance to sit down with some incredible people with fascinating stories. I'm Wisdom Martin, here to offer you a behind-the-scenes peek into their lives. So get ready for honest, inspiring, and candid conversations. All right, it's time for a moment of wisdom, and I have Cy Smith right now. Hey. Good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
Good to see you. So jazz is your specialty. How did you, first, let's back it up. Let's back it up.
Okay.
How did you get started in music altogether?
You know, I was raised right here in the DC area. I think my first inkling into music was via piano.
Okay.
And I started playing piano by ear, and then I begged my mother for piano lessons. I didn't know how to say it, but how to articulate private lessons, but that's what I wanted. She finally got me a private teacher. And then maybe around 10 years old, I got into a choir in my school. The first choir I tried out for, I didn't get into.
Oh, okay.
Wisdom.
Right, you didn't give up though.
I didn't give up,
okay.
But I changed schools.
You moved the goal line. Yeah. You moved the goal line. Okay, you changed schools, and then you eventually got into the choir.
Yes, I got into choir, and from that was Phyllis E. Williams Elementary in Largo, and then she encouraged me to audition for the Prince George's County Honors Chorus. I got into that, where our culminating concert every year was at the Kennedy Center. And that was really exciting for me, and I did honors chorus from 5th grade until the end of high school.
Wow.
And then from that I went on into all state of Maryland, all Eastern, and once you get into all Eastern, they invite you to do all kinds of stuff. So I did the all national choir and went to Europe for the first time at 16.
Okay, what was that experience like for you going to Europe at 16?
Well, at 16, it showed me, for once, like there's a tangible experience that can be had from pursuing a career in music. Like, this can actually take me around the world. And that was a novel concept to me. I didn't have any artists in my family, professionally. My family are all academics and stuff. So this was like the first time that I saw that art could really take me someplace.
Right. Now, coming from a family of academics, at any point did they say, okay, all of that's fine, but let's go do something else and make some money? Because I know a lot of artists, when they start out, their parents are like, okay, yeah, that's great, but how are you gonna make some money?
Yeah, I don't think that my family really knew how serious I was about music until my junior year at Howard, when I made the decision not to apply to any grad schools. That's when they knew. Like, what? You're not gonna do what? I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go to grad school immediately. And my mother was actually okay with it. My dad, though, was like, wait a minute, But when I moved eventually to Los Angeles and started working professionally as a musician, I think they were a little bit more relaxed. But between that and that was about 2 or 3 years.
And I'm sure they were looking at you like, all right now, Cy, come on. Come on.
They thought I was crazy. I said, I'm gonna drive to LA and live there. And they were like, wait a minute, what? Where is this coming from? But I had been, doing it the entire time, my entire life. I had been that serious. It's just that everybody didn't necessarily know it.
Right. You had to have a lot of courage, though, to go from here to LA pursuing music, and your parents are like,
Some might call it courage, some might call it stupidity.
Did you have a game plan? No, what did you do? I mean, you said, did you have connections out there already? How did that all work out for you?
I auditioned for a play, and I just, it was just something I did on a whim, and the play was opening in Los Angeles. Maybe 2 or 3 months after that audition, I didn't hear anything, but I ran into the director at a cattle call for Motown Records, and he was like, hey, you auditioned for me. I'm still looking for my angel. Angel was the name of the character. And I was like, okay. And he was like, do you want to go to LA like next week and be my angel? And I was like, sure, man, whatever. And a week later, he sent me a plane ticket. This is when plane tickets were still on paper.
Right.
He sent me a plane ticket, and I went to LA to do this play. Now, the play only lasted about a month, but it was long enough to get my feet wet in LA.
Right.
And then I decided to go out and drive out there.
Right.
And I had a couple of connections. There were some Howard people out there,
right.
That helped get me straight. But that was a crazy time.
I'm sure, were you nervous during the whole process? Because a lot of young people get nervous when they do this as well.
I was too young to be nervous. And I was too, I was too bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you know, to be all the way nervous. I had saved a little money working on Capitol Hill, and so, you know, I had my little $300-400 in the bank.
You were rich.
and I had my Nissan Stanza, and you know, and that was running okay, you know. So I wasn't as nervous as I was excited about the prospect of what I might do. And back then I was pursuing a career as a songwriter, not as a singer.
Right.
You know, because still at that time I didn't really see myself as like a lead singer. I just like to sing, and I like to write, and you know, record and arrange and that kind of thing. You know, the recording artist part came a little later, and more as a necessity to get my songs out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When you started singing and writing, when you started doing all of it together,
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at your list of people that you've been around,
Yeah.
worked with. I mean, that's an incredible list of people. That's a dream list for a lot of people. I'm talking, okay, let me just, Eric Benet,
Yes.
Usher.
Yeah.
You were with Whitney.
Yes.
Genuine,
Yeah.
Michelle Indego Uccello.
Yeah.
I mean, and it goes on and on and on. What has the experience been like working with all these different people in all these different capacities, whether it's concerts, on the road, whatever you've been doing with them? All these names.
You're a sports guy, I think. Imagine being an athlete and all of a sudden you're in a sports camp with some of the best athletes
Right.
in the world. It's like that.
It would make me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you nervous, but it also pumps you up and makes you want to do the best performance you can do. So, you know, being behind Whitney, you know, it was like, I mean, it's incomparable. It's incomparable to anything else.
Right.
Performing with Michelle Indego and writing with her, you know, I kind of feel like it must have been like that to maybe perform and work with Miles Davis. You know, I feel like she's sort of the Miles Davis of our time in a lot of ways. And you know, and then some people are just your friends. Like Eric Benet is just a friend, and
Right.
you know, it was like kicking it with your friend who happens to be one of the best singers ever.
And Brandy, I see Brandy's on the list as well.
Yeah, we call her the vocal Bible.
Right.
You know, it's really, and also not just the artists, but the musicians who are in those situations. So I'm not just working with some of the best recording artists, but some of the best musicians in the game. Ricky Minor, Paul Jackson Jr., Bashiri Johnson, Kirk Whalum, like all these people who are just some of the best ever, you know, to do it. That's an amazing way to come up, you know.
When you're in it, do you ever pinch yourself and remember the 16-year-old you who was driving from here to LA
All the time.
With $300 and a dream?
All
and
the
now
time.
look at me now. Do you ever?
All the time. 3 nights ago, I was in London performing, and Layla Hathaway came to my show, and we're friends, but still, she got up and we had a little impromptu jam session, and I was pinching myself then because the first time I met Layla, I snuck into her sound check right here at Blues Alley.
Wow.
That was how I met her.
Wow.
You know, so when that happened 3 nights ago, yes, I pinch myself all the time. I'm pinching myself now talking to you.
Right, and this is a place where you snuck in.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is where it all started.
Now, a lot of people, when they see you on stage and doing your thing and working with all these different people and see the success that you've had and the journey that you've gone through. I heard a little bit about it. You just told me about it.
Yeah.
But they don't see the struggle.
Right.
They don't see what went into making the diamond that is you.
Thank you for that.
What advice would you tell them in regards to their going through their own personal journey, whatever that journey is,
Yeah.
where you can inspire, inform, and impact their lives with some words of
Yeah.
encouragement?
You know, I was saying the other day on my TikTok, whatever you set out to do it with a smile as much as possible, because your intention, hopefully, is to, with whatever it is that you're doing, is to bring love and spread joy, messages of freedom, messages of liberation. So sometimes your journey isn't always going to be fun. Sometimes the people that you're interacting with aren't having a good day and they might be mean to you. Sometimes the TSA is going to go through every single bag and open every single thing, and you're going to have to repack it. You still have to go forth with a smile because you know that your intention is to spread love and to spread joy. And as long as you're sticking with that, I think things will go the way you intend them to go.
Right.
You know, it's not always going to be easy, though. I had breast cancer last year. I was diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer, and it ended up being stage 1. And I had to have a mastectomy and reconstruction, and I was afraid, like, I'm going to have to cancel shows and all this stuff. And I was just afraid of surgery, you know? Who wouldn't be afraid to have a part of their body amputated? But my community really stepped in, and my husband and my family, and they propped me up in a way that helped me rebuild, you know? And I was able to get back out on the road 3.5 weeks later. I was in London.
That's amazing.
You know, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't because of just me. It was because of the people around me. And I think because I try so hard to encourage kindness, you know, generosity.
Kindness, generosity,
you know,
adventure, love, fearlessness, and courage.
All of that stuff.
All of those things.
These are all things that are important to me, and more, you know. But I think they're the backbone of what I try to do, you know, and how I try to do it.
And you also want to use this as an opportunity to tell other women to get checked as well.
Absolutely. Stay on top of those mammograms. Is that the camera? Stay on top of your mammograms. Stay on top of all of your testing, all of your screening, and not just women, guys too. We gotta go out for all of those things. Those preventative measures are what help keep us safe and healthy. You know, and I know it's scary, but you know what's scarier? Cancer. You know, so get out there and do that.
Right. Let's talk about your music.
Yeah.
And you're being on the road.
Yes.
What can people expect when they, first of all, when they come to see you at your show? What can they expect to see?
You know, I'm very personable, I think, on stage. I think in that I show you the real me. Whatever you see on stage is really who I am.
Right.
And I try to make it very intimate and cozy, you know, whether it's a room of 200 or 2,000. I try to make it intimate and cozy. You might get some jokes, you know. I think I get that from my dad, Big Sigh. You know, but and you might get some spontaneous moments that don't happen in every city. My set list is not laminated, you know. It fluctuates depending on the energy in the room. Sometimes my band is not happy about that because I might call a song that isn't on the original plan. But you know, I like to feed off of the energy in the room and give back what I'm getting. You know?
Right. Where can people find your music? And do you have some new stuff that you're working on that's out?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So I have 6 albums out. 6 albums, maybe 3 EPs, a live DVD, all that good stuff. And it's all streaming on all the major platforms. My latest album is called Until We Meet Again. That was released just a year ago on the Foreign Exchange Music. The Foreign Exchange is a hip-hop group from North Carolina and the Netherlands.
Right.
It's a duo. But those 2 guys, Nicolay and Fonte, released my album. We work together all the time. I'm super excited about it. That album made a lot of best of 2024 lists last year. So Until We Meet Again is a culmination of my journey in this business. Almost 25 years long.
Wow.
I know, that's crazy.
You look like you've been in this business
Thank
25 years.
Highlight that part.
Make sure that makes the segment, right?
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, but you know what? As much as we are taught to sort of shy away from our age, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that journey. And I'm proud to have made it this far. You know, just a little girl from Temple Hills,
Right.
you know,
Right.
who came up the hard way and landed softly, you know.
Is there someone that you draw inspiration from that's either out now or out when you were started, like your styles? I mean, a lot of people, like singers, say, oh, I like Marvin Gaye or Michael Jackson or Prince or somebody.
Yeah.
Is there somebody like that for you?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I listened to a lot of horn players, you know, Earth, Wind, and Fire, in bands that had horn sections, you know. The go-go bands right here in town that had horn sections back in the 80s, I was really big into that. And vocally, I think I styled myself after horn players a lot.
Okay.
But also, you know, the sopranos from the 80s, you know, and the 70s, Minnie Riperton, Denise Williams, Patrice Rushen, El DeBarge. I mean, you know, as far as high voices go, like I think those were a big part of Janet Jackson. Michael Jackson,
Right.
absolutely. You know, he's my fave ever. And vocal arrangers like Michael.
Right.
Yeah, those are all some of my favorites. But I think you'll hear influences from obscure eras and artists too, or things that you wouldn't expect to hear in me, like funk elements,
Right.
you know, in my voice too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I want to go back to Howard for a second.
Please.
How did HU,
You know?
how did that shape you and put you on a path to where you are today?
Well, you know, my mother got her master's from Howard. And so when she was attending classes, maybe her last year, she would take me with her up there to the School of Social Work. And she worked at the Center for Sickle Cell Disease for many years. And so I would always hang out up there. I knew Howard was going to be the place I went. That was the only school I applied to, okay? It was the best choice I ever made. I loved my schooling there, you know, as far as academics, and my schooling there as far as social schooling, just how you learn to interact with people, the people that I met along the way. And it was really one of the best tracks for me in life. You know, my whole trajectory would have been different had I not attended Howard. I was in psychology. That was my major. I didn't major in music. I was too scared. But I majored in psychology and still found myself in front of the Fine Arts Building every day. So shout out to fine arts, shout out to psychology.
Right.
And those professors, still some of them keep in touch with me. You know, shout out to Dr. Harrell, the late Dr. Boykin. Those professors at schools like Howard, they really are invested in you personally. You're not just a number, you're a person. So I'm so happy that I went there.
All right. Leave us with something positive. Can you just say anything positive that comes to your mind right now?
Oh my goodness.
Anything.
Keep moving, you know, no matter what. Sometimes, you know, the pressure, the stress, everything that's going on in the world makes you want to stop and freeze where you are. Like, you know, scared stiff. But you got to keep moving. One step, one step, one step at a time. Sometimes the hardest step is the first one.
Right.
But as soon as you do that, you keep doing it. You keep doing it. I run 3 miles almost every day. You know, I didn't do it yet today, but I'm going to when we leave here.
Okay.
And the hardest part for me is usually those first 2 steps. But once I get moving, I know I'm going to finish.
All right.
You know, that's important.
Some great words of wisdom.
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I see what you Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up next.
I used my platform as Miss District of Columbia USA to ensure that people knew that even if you grow up in foster care, you can still go on to become successful.
Former Miss DC USA 2019 Cordelia Cranshaw and her efforts to help young girls gain more confidence.
Our next guest is a former Miss DC USA 2019, a social worker, foster care system advocate, and so much more. It's time for a moment of wisdom, and we have Cordelia Cranshaw.
Hi.
Appreciate you coming in and talking with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to chat with you.
Yes, and your story is amazing. It always inspires me because
Thank you.
I know the journey from where you started to where you are now. So let's talk about some of the current things that you're doing first. Well, what are you working on right now as an advocate for out here in the community?
Well, with all the work that I've done over the last decade, what I'm really focused on is individuals' mental health. It's really, really important that those who have experienced trauma have the mental health resources and tools to combat that trauma so that they can thrive in their everyday life.
Right, and let's go back. Let's back up. So we'll go backwards and then we'll come back again. Tell me a little bit about your background, because you grew up in the foster care system as well. So tell me that story, because I think it's a fascinating journey for you.
Thank you. At 12 years old, my mom went away to prison for 10 years. My dad was a struggling alcoholic. I bounced around from home to home. I was homeless. I first entered the foster care system when I was 5 and then again at 14 years old. And looking back, I really struggled with my confidence, my mental health, and I ended up entering into pageants because I wanted to gain the awareness and the tools to be able to navigate life. And that really changed my life. Knowing that I was breaking generational cycles, I was able to go and represent the District of Columbia as top 10 at Miss USA, really showed me that my circumstances, my trauma, my past didn't define my future success. And I started an organization to ensure that other children know that their current circumstances don't define their future success at all.
Now, how did you get into pageants? You just were, one day you were doing your thing and you said, okay, this is a great idea. Let me try this, because that can't be easy.
No, they're not easy at all. And actually, I knew nothing about pageants. I was a tomboy growing up. I always wore my hair pulled back, had very bushy eyebrows, didn't dress very girly. But I was at my foster mother's job one day and I was looking up modeling, and I printed out a bunch of information and took it to my cheerleading coach at the time. She knew all about pageants and signed me up for a pageant a week later. I actually won the pageant, and that changed my life and opened up my eyes to the world of pageantry as it is today.
And then when you do go into pageantry, you have to have a platform, so to speak.
Yes.
And you picked a platform.
Yes, so my platform was all about debunking the myths that youth who grow up in foster care don't go on to become successful. You see and hear the statistics that youth who age out of the foster care system, only 3%, 6% end up with a college degree. I was able to go and get my master's in social work by the time I was 22 years old. You hear about the statistics that by 23, they have no employment. By 26, they're homeless. So for me, I was beating the odds and overcoming the statistics, and I used my platform as Miss District of Columbia USA to ensure that people knew that even if you grow up in foster care, you can still go on to become successful.
There's had to be something in you to drive you past all of that, and even to challenge yourself to get into something you knew nothing about, and to make this kind of your platform and your deal.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? What is it about all of this that makes you say, okay, this is not going to define me? And not only is it not going to define me, I'm going to be successful and I'm going to reach back as well.
Yeah, I actually get that question a lot, and I created a toolkit for youth who are in foster care called Survivor to Thriver. So growing up, I was surviving every single day. There were days that I didn't know what I was going to eat, where I was going to sleep, how I was going to get to school. And so when I get that question, I created certain strategies that I used. And two of my favorite strategies, one being forgiveness. I forgave my parents at a very young age. I was able to look at their life and their experiences and their choices and realize that they were overcoming their own trauma and didn't have the tools that they needed to reach the level of success that I did. And so I forgave them, and that would allow me to release the anger and the frustration and the pain that often we hold on to when we're hurt. And I was able to just put that motivation and that energy into my education and the things that I wanted out of life. And then the other is being able to reframe how we think about life and how we use our thoughts. We have the power to create a life that we want to live. And so that's turning negatives into positives. You hear so many bad things about the foster care system. And although a lot of them are true, I didn't allow people telling me that I was going to be like my mother or I was going to be like my father to deter me from what I wanted out of life.
And you're also, talk a little bit about your social work, your other work as well, because you deal with a lot of different young people, in addition to having conversations about foster care.
Yes, so right now the organization that I founded, Acts of Random Kindness, we have two entry points. We work with the school systems or we work with affordable housing communities, and we go in and have interactive workshops. So I'm really passionate right now about helping young girls gain their confidence. I'm coming out with a toolkit called Radiate Your Confidence, and it's for little girls who want to be confident. It's for moms to buy this toolkit for their daughters so that they can be thriving women and confident women as they're navigating identifying themselves, life, society, peer pressure, and just making sure that they know that they're beautiful from the inside out.
Now, a lot of people, when we talk about success stories, and I'm sure they see you up there and they consider you a very successful person.
Thank you.
Because you have overcome a lot. But they see you, but they don't necessarily, may hear the struggles or may read about it, but they don't really know all the things that you've been through.
Yeah.
What do you tell them to inspire them like you were inspired?
Well, I tell them, don't let this look fool you. I know exactly what it's like to go to school and not feel good about what's happening at home. I had a 7th grade teacher who I was able to open up to throughout my journey, and she's someone that I can pick up the phone and call today. So I always encourage you to not be afraid to be vulnerable. Find someone that supports you, that believes in you, and connect with them and share with them about what you're going through, and you'd be surprised how much they can help you.
All right. What's next for you?
Oh, what's next?
When you have any free time?
Well, I want to continue traveling the globe, inspiring others to be vulnerable, to use their mental health resources to gain confidence, and I want to continue to ensure that families break generational cycles.
How has motherhood changed you?
Oh my gosh, motherhood was an interesting journey for me. I mean, becoming a mom and not having a connection that I believe is ideal for a mother and daughter. It was difficult. I have a little boy. He keeps me excited. I get to be a kid with him. I get to have experiences that I didn't always have as a kid. So we like to go to the park. We like to wrestle. We like to eat ice cream as much as possible. I really enjoy being his mom and being able to have that mother-child connection that I didn't necessarily have growing up.
All right. Anything else you want to say that might inspire somebody or might encourage somebody, that might impact somebody's life? Whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah, I would just encourage them to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to share some of the depths of who we are, some of the pain and the resilience that we have in our lives, because you never know whose life that might change.
All right, Cordelia Cranshaw, thank you very much
Thank
for sharing a moment of wisdom with me.
Of course, thank you.
Appreciate you. All right.